Welcome to Thursday Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jesse Ott, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass. Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursday Thursdays. I am Jesse Ott, and I have Frank Klein here, founder of Post Road Hospitality, restaurant, and beverage brands. Woo! Hey, Frank, how are you?
Good, Jesse. Very excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here. Obviously, you're the first person I ever clapped for. You inspired me.
I really, really appreciate that. I'll do the wave for you later.
I love it. See? Teamwork. We got this.
Reciprocal.
That's right. So where are you calling in from today?
I'm calling in from our corporate offices at Fairfield, Connecticut, in the Gold Coast of Connecticut.
Okay. So you want to start off here and talk about Fairfields Rum of the Americas?
Yeah, so Fairfields Rum is one of the brands under Post Road Hospitality. We have restaurant beverage brands. We have a beer brand, a rum brand, and a couple restaurant brands. And Fairfields Rum, it was a long passion of mine. As I go back and I've been looking at all my photos and culling photos, I realized how long ago I really did start the journey for the rum. I always tell people it's been 2 or 3 years as we ideate the finished product, but I think I have 100 fucking pictures of daiquiris, from 1 month in April of 2017 that I must have been doing daiquiri research. So it's been a long journey, and at one time we were going to make it here, there, everywhere. I think we've kind of perfected now our processes and what we're doing. We like rum. We think it's a versatile spirit. We think that there's a lot of white space out there from a business standpoint, from a passion project. We really do like our product and our coming RTDs and our reserves. We're very proud of what it took to get here and the people that helped us to get here. But we're now launching the rum into several markets, and we are putting it into some of the restaurants that we have cooperations with and partnerships in. So Post Road Hospitality, we believe, is alive and well and ready for a strong 2024.
Oh, that's exciting. No recession, right? So we beat that. So that's good.
So far, so good. And my theory is about the economic downturns is you've got to play the hand that's dealt you. So if you've seen something come and change it, like what's happening right now at spirits and beer and restaurant markets, people, what Wayne Gretzky said, told me this. I'm not the greatest hockey fan, but I love sports. But the hockey fan, Wayne Gretzky, always said, you skate to where the puck is going, not to where the puck is. So if you sit on your ass and wait for a recession to hit you in the head, that's your fault. You should be getting ahead of it, adjusting your prices, adjusting your offering, adjusting what you really do with your consumer. And I think everybody that was smart started doing that last year. And if you're right, Jesse, and we did avoid a recession, everybody is still in a much better place. They skated to where the puck was, not sitting there where it was, where it's going, not where it was. Always skate to where the puck is going. Don't sit on your butt.
That's awesome and true and fascinating all at the same time in the eyes of what your world is like. I can't imagine on the restaurant side you mentioned a few things that you have to do, but what is that process like? And you have multi-units, so do you get your board in or your management team in and kind of figure out by concept, like what things can we change up to kind of hedge yourself against a potential recession?
Absolutely. And first of all, the businesses that we're in, everything is constant research. And we always talk about, we can learn something about how 7-Eleven cooks a taquito, and we can learn something from a very high-end restaurant in Miami that does a cocktail. You always have to be doing research, and you have to be reading. I remember this conversation I had with a bunch of Michelin chefs in San Francisco. I used to be on their wine tasting panel for the Chronicle. And they were all very snobby and saying, oh, I don't read this, I don't read that. And I said, it's the internet. I read pizza.com, fastcasual.com, QSR.com, Restaurant Industry News, Forbes, Nation's Restaurant News. You got to look at all that to see what the bullshit is, what the posers are doing, and then what really trend lines are. Because there's fads, and then there's trends. And then there's trends that stick around. So it's a lot of eating and drinking and traveling, but you really have to surround yourself with advisors and board members and team members that have that passion to really think, are we doing what's right now, or should we be doing something else? Should we be skating to where the puck is going? And there's numerous examples of all the businesses that we are in right now, segment wise, that we have changed what we've been doing just over the past year, even though we thought our plans were solidified. You got to change. You got to see what's going on out there. And then you got to trust your gut. You can't go after fads. You have to look at trends. I think there's a huge difference in those two. A lot of people don't get that.
Can you tap into just a few of those things that you adjusted just in the last year? Because, I mean, I get the COVID part where you're, having to get connected on your website to all these different delivery apps and then joining all these delivery apps and, the pains that I know that y'all went through because there's so many companies and you have to have an app for this, an app for that, an app for this. I get the whole COVID adoption, but what was the main pain points that you had to kind of get over to prepare for a potential recession last year?
Well, we were looking at to spend our dollars wisely and to spend our investors' dollars wisely. What are the segments we should go into to be able to reserve cash and conserve cash? And maybe we don't do all the initiatives we were going to do, but definitely looking at prioritizing some non-alcoholic spirits and doing things with our rum brand with lower alcohol and non-alcohol. That was a trend that is not going away. And maybe we would have pushed it off until 2025, but that's definitely a 2024 initiative now. And also some of the brands that we're developing, doing some bundling and some package pricing and just making sure that we're the best operators possible. Because I tell you, I'm getting really fucking pissed at having a check that says we're just in Raleigh, North Carolina in a restaurant. I got a check. It didn't say anything on the bill. I mean, on the menu, but we got charged 2% for an equitable fee for the kitchen staff, right? Now, hey, granted, that's a great initiative, but should you be sticking it to me on the bill, or should you just be focusing that on the pricing? So that's one big initiative we've been looking at lately, because again, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the $7.50 health insurance fee, the whatever. And that's me as a consumer. And what we try to do is our brands looking at all that and saying, how do we become better operators to charge a fair price and then either not nickel and dime people, Jesse, or more importantly, people just get pissed off with that kind of stuff, even if they fully agree with what you're doing. And that was one of the big things we looked at last year. Was that's a trend we don't want to go down. So how do we include pricing that we don't have to demonstrate to everybody that we feel the government's fucking us, or whatever wage regulations or health, whatever it is, our diners, our consumers shouldn't have to be involved in that. So that was one thing we really pivoted and looked at. Because you're right, the pandemic was a pivot and a reaction. And then you started to go back to your mean line of what your business was doing. No one could have predicted what was going to happen with the pandemic, except a couple months in, you started to realize direct to consumer, e-commerce, different pricing levels, different tiers, you started to realize different consumer touch points. And the strong people came out of the pandemic, post-pandemic, using some of those practices and procedures to their benefit. But I think everybody came out leaner and meaner. But definitely we looked at that. We looked at being more conservative with cash. We looked at different trends in the business as far as pricing structures go, dining habits, takeout, catering, all those things morphed and changed during the pandemic. But we were already ahead of it, like most good operators were, getting ready to rock. And you rock 23, and now we're going to rock 24 with all that fun knowledge that we gained, Jesse.
Yay. Well, I love that. I love rocking 2024. So you're prepared. So you kind of maybe were a little bit more conservative on some initiatives, and then you kind of dove into other initiatives like the NA Bev sector. So did you see those numbers kind of in that trend kind of coming in that first half of last year and then keeping strong through the back half of 2023 to kind of catapult what's happening in 2024?
Yeah, and then you also see it's numbers and it's data, but then also you look at what the industry is doing overall. And at the end of the year, you always get like the Diageo report, the Bacardi report, and all these, you get all these reports, right? And sometimes that's media driven, and sometimes what those particular billion-dollar companies want to do or the narrative that they're pushing. Then you also have to look at really what's going on, boots on the ground, talking to liquor stores, talking to distributors, talking to brand managers, and seeing and talking to a lot of bartenders, which we do. There's nothing like sitting in a bar and talking to a bartender because you'll hear about probably everything you need to know about what's going on in the industry. So yeah, you start to see those trends and you start to see those movements, but you still have to go out there and live, breathe, and eat it to get a perspective. Literally, live, breathe, eat, and drink it, I might say.
So the bartenders, what is your analysis on, like, are they in support of the NA Bev trends that are happening? Because I guess from their standpoint, they're creative geniuses and mixologists, and whether the cocktail has alcohol in it may or may not matter to some degree. I mean, for me as a consumer, the taste is the problem, not the alcohol. The flavor. I miss certain flavors of drinks that I really love.
Yeah, and so that's why there's like really several categories, right? There's full booze, there's low alcohol, which I'm personally a preference of in our restaurants, making drinks that are done with like vermouths or different kind of liqueurs and spirits that are lower alcohol. So they have those flavors and those textures and the textural feel on the tongue that you're talking about. And then there's of course, the ubiquitous mocktail thing, which my young daughters would drink. But if you throw booze in them, you drink them. But at a restaurant, you have the mocktails, you have the low proof, and then the no proof. And I think what's still happening right now for the no proof cocktails with bartenders, the respective to the question you asked, I think that, listen, they want to make cocktails. They want to make cool, hip stuff. And if one out of every 5 of their customers are going to ask them for something with lower or no alcohol, they have to go. They're skating to where the puck's going, not where it is. I think that there are good brands, none of which I really want to shout out, but that are doing non-alcoholic spirits that mimic somewhat. It's easier to mimic gin than it is to mimic like a non-alcoholic vodka. It's easier to mimic, gin is probably the one because of the botanicals. We're working with non-alcoholic rum, but we're taking the alcohol out of our rum. So some people might think they're silly, but I think as long as we're getting closer and perfecting the portfolio, the taste of the non-alcoholic spirits, I think that's what bartenders are looking for, because it gives them to be extra clever. Because like you said, already people are suspicious of the taste. So if a bartender could really get a cool cocktail with no alcohol or lower alcohol, that shows that restaurant's really not only on trend, but they have real good people that give a shit about what people are trying to drink these days.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. That's really interesting. You're doing a no alcohol rum. Is it going to be like a spice rum or a flavored rum, or
our first step
a neutral rum?
Is to get it de-alcoholized. So we don't want to make a fake rum as much as to make that portfolio as much as take a rum, and we're doing both, right? We're doing parallel paths. So making a fake rum, which is trying to taste like rum, but we're also then doing the rum and trying to get alcohol taken out of our rum. And most distillers don't have that equipment. It's a weird thing we learned along the way. So we're working with different people that are distilling our rum to take the alcohol out of our rum and then see if that has the flavor portfolio we want. Or then do you have to add flavorings and stuff into it, which we would always be all natural or organic. But so yes, we are ideating with alcohol and without alcohol, spiced rums, and one other flavored rum.
Okay. Do you want to talk about where the rum is made and kind of some of the processes that you're using?
Yeah, so we assist in
some of the history?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We assist in So first we were going to make our rum in South America. We were going to go down there, and we went to Colombia, and we had these great trips with these great sugar producers. And then we just started to realize that great product, difficult to distill, import, exportation. How do we do it? And so then we started just trying to source the best ingredients we possibly could, and found it a lot easier to source those ingredients, have them shipped to a distiller in the United States, and then have the distillation going on in the United States with people that have the best-in-class materials and best-in-class distillation equipment. Because there's local producers and distillers we tried to work with, but they don't have like the filtration. They don't have certain things with UV, filtration of water, and then being able to see how many parts per gazillion that are left in the bottle. Going out with a new spirit, you need to make sure your spirit and your label and your bottle and everything are the tippy top shape, to compete with the big boys and girls in the business. So we do that right now with Next Century Spirits in North Carolina, who's a very big white labeler, but they also do boutique spirits like us. So we're able to assist them in sourcing the ingredients that we want, because our rum is a blend of distilled molasses and distilled agricole, which is 100% sugarcane juice. So the little trick of the trade is that sugarcane juice degrades very quickly if it's not turned into molasses, or if it's just left untended. It just becomes useless. So we take sugarcane juice that's distilled right away, and then we take molasses that's distilled over time, and then we redistill those two, which we did with formulas with bartenders. And one of our advisory group is Eric Oberholzer, who founded 10 Degrees. He's an extremely good chef. And we work with chefs, bartenders, and other distillers to try to, we ship them all around the country during the pandemic, little bottles, and said, tell us, do you like number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and why? And at one point,
that's awesome.
At one point we were even shipping out different distillations and saying, make your blend and then ship us back that bottle. So people would pour little things, and they were all like little 6-ouncers. So everybody was pouring them like they're all making science experiment. And what was really remarkable, Jesse, was that of the 6 people that we ended up being the circle of trust, everybody pretty much came within a very small range of what we were all going for. So that was kind of cool. So we don't disclose the exact percentage.
That is really cool.
We don't disclose the exact percentage, but we do tell you what's in it and how we do it. We just don't want to say what the balance is, because we think we got it to the point where you can sip it as a silver rum, or you can mix it in a craft cocktail.
Okay, really cool. That's really awesome. So when did the whole, you said you've kind of been taking pictures from 2017. When did this whole thing kind of just, did the light bulb go on? Was it the pandemic where you're like, yeah, this is the right time? Like, when did you decide to pull the trigger on the rum?
Well, I sold most of the shares of my restaurant chain in California and stepped down as the CEO after 9 years. Our COO took over, who was the person we hand selected. So I did that, and then I moved to Connecticut. I did a project with a friend of mine for a couple of years in New York, and then when that was ending, we dusted off the rum as an official, unofficial project and said it's time to do this. And we had the time and we had the team to do it. So after ideating it, my co-founder Joy and I were talking about this 15, 20 years ago as we drank rum together in the hotel business. We just finally kept on saying and talking to each other, going, why haven't we done our rum yet? We're both in a different position than we were back then. Why aren't we doing our rum yet? And technology evolved, processes evolved, everything evolved into the point where it was like harmonic convergence, and we had the time to focus, and we did it. And so we started. You have to source the bottle, the cap, design the label, you do all that kind of stuff. You have to get federal approvals, all that, trademarks. So we did all that while we were doing what I talked about before, which was let's mix and match and see what kind of rum we want to make.
Oh, that's fun.
So, and now that's evolved from the silver rum into, we're just about to bottle a reserve rum we purchased that is sherry cascade rum, and we're just about to do our RTD line.
Oh, what kind of RTD?
So everything evolved. Well, we're going to do RTDs that are a little bit, we're not going to do malt-based. We're going to do spirits-based RTDs that are a little bit higher in alcohol. We're focusing on between 7.5% to 9.5%. And we're focusing on lower sugar, lower carbs, but more savory flavors that have a sense of sweetness as opposed to over sickly sweetness. So all of our products and all of our rum direction is going back to the classic roots of rum, which wasn't so sweet and wasn't so sugary. And we're going back to that really great Mad Men day of rum and the 30s and 40s rum and classic drinks that bartenders made that it really wasn't too sweet. So like our RTD portfolio will follow that same process.
Awesome.
We're not going to make overly sweet spring break RTDs.
Yeah.
We're going
Well,
to make
there's enough
balanced
out
quality.
there. Yeah, that's cool.
Oh my God.
Savory's
Oh,
great. That's unique. So that'll be fun. I'm excited for you. I can't wait to see what you guys develop. That is awesome.
yeah, they're fun. The flavor portfolios we're coming up and what we're looking at is cool because everybody can do the next mojito, everybody can do whatever, and you fancy packaging this and that. We're trying to create something that's true to our ethos, but also sells.
Right.
Because our investors don't really. It's great to have a vanity project. It's better to have a vanity project that sells. So you got to kind of balance both those, but stick to the company ethos, which is always less sugar and propagating rum as a go-to spirit that's not vodka or tequila. Because we feel like the tequila explosion, lot market-driven, more media-driven, is what we can do with rum because it's a great spirit that most people think has sugar in it because it's made with sugar cane. But if you don't add sugar after you distill something, it doesn't have sugar,
right?
Nor does that gluten. So we're not going to try to beat our heads over spending a gazillion dollars getting people to realize that, but we will put out products and stick to our core values that will demonstrate that in a clever way.
Yeah, no, I like that. I know I've had different people on last year, and Brian in particular was talking about sipping rums. I see that a lot, obviously here in Florida, but I've seen it in Texas too. A lot of really nice aged sipping rums are kind of popping up, on the shelves a little bit more than what you normally see, right? I mean, in Florida for sure, but just still in Texas, it's coming.
Yeah, and in Texas it would normally be tequila drinkers and bourbon drinkers. Our reserve rum competes against drinking for like bourbon. Like we have pretty sophisticated drinkers coming into our offices, which we have great offices that have a bar, and we'll taste them on certain stuff and not tell them what it is. And a lot of them point out, yeah, this is rum, but I love it. It drinks like a bourbon. And other people think, oh, wow, this is like a great bourbon or whatever. We're not putting a reserve out that tastes like a whiskey or a bourbon. It's aged in sherry casks.
Yummy.
Which gives the rum a rounded, like a Havana Club reserve from Cuba flair. Now, I don't know what the hell they put in it. I've been to Cuba 6 times, but I love drinking rum in Cuba.
I do too.
But I don't know if they're putting caramel, vanilla. I don't know what the fuck they're doing with it, but it tastes really good.
It's good.
We're trying to replicate that taste in a natural way.
Okay.
And we found that you can. But yeah, we have a reserve rum that could go up against a higher end tequila, brown tequila, or a higher end brown spirit, and not make it too sweet and syrupy that people don't like what they're drinking.
Right.
Bourbon really has that vanilla notes. It has that oak notes. It has those similar caramel or butterscotch, whatever notes. So what we're trying to do, again, sticking to our ethos of not too sweet and no sugar added, we're trying to recreate that portfolio for somebody to go, so I spend $70 on a bourbon or tequila, or maybe $48 on Fairfield's Frank and Joy's rum that drinks the same way.
Yeah. No, I was just going to ask you about price. What are you thinking for both the white and the reserve?
So we're $28.99 retail for the classic dry and about $48.99 for the reserve.
Okay.
So stand under 30 and stand under 50.
Gotcha. Okay. Where are you at in terms of, distribution and kind of launching in various markets?
So we're in Connecticut right now, and we're going into New Jersey, New York, and Massachusetts in February.
Great.
Which then gives us the ability to be with an e-commerce provider for 35 states.
Great.
So we already have accounts, and we're selling, and we're getting widely received. It's fantastic. Now it's time to explode our reach. And that means going into those markets, getting into e-commerce, and really expanding our influence is what we're doing next month.
Nice. Well, that's exciting times.
It really is. I mean, working with the big box retailers, and it's that balance, though, Jesse. You got to make sure you have enough, but you can't have too much. The better thing about like beer RTDs have a very particular shelf life, especially beer in a can. Spirits don't. You know what I mean? If you bottle, this is how stupid I am. Like 25 years ago, maybe no, 35 years ago, my brother and I broke up with his girlfriend. We took a trip to Mexico. And I said, look at me, I found this like 20-year-old like rum or whatever like that. I wonder what it tastes like now. And it's like, it probably doesn't taste much different. You know what I mean? So, because it's in glass and it's not touching any air. So it's not like it's been in a cask or something. So now we got to make sure that we have enough rum in the bottle, reserve and classic dry, to fill the need, to create a market and not run out. And that's what we're doing right now. That's what we're really spending right now, is doing the projections and making sure that we have quality bottlings to get to our big box retailers and to our accounts. We're really focusing on higher end restaurants that'll put us on a cocktail. And we'll also understand that, sure, you can buy a bottle of Bacardi for $12 or $13 wholesale. But if you buy ours for $22 wholesale, I mean, charge 75 cents more for the cocktail, maybe $1 more. And it's a better product, and it's a more unique product, and you're supporting a smaller business.
Yep. Yeah, no, 100%. Absolutely. So switching over to your restaurants, what brands do you still have that you're operating, and are they mostly now on the East Coast since you're relocated in Connecticut?
Yeah, so we have, I'm still a large shareholder of Asian Box, the company I founded. They're fantastic. The new CEO is rocking. They're operated really well. They're going to be in 3 airports by the end of this year. We're rocking it in SFO right now. We're going into LAX and San Jose Airport. So that's on autopilot. It's almost like I tell my wife, it's our 401k. It's being really well run, very well managed, and it's growing. So that's awesome. As far as the East Coast goes, we took out one of our restaurants that was a pop-up and then a brick and mortar Roost House, and we brought it into Connecticut. And then we were approached by the iconic Two Roads Brewing out of Connecticut, and we developed a food hall for them for a contract for a year, where we developed 3 brands, and now they're going to rotate brands in and out. But our 3 brands are going to go and start expanding where we want them to expand. So we have Skull City Taquitos, which are rolled little pieces of love that you would normally drink after surfing or eating, with your boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, whomever at the beaches of California, dipping them into sauces. That's Skull City Taquito. It's more of an LA brand. It's more of a Los Angeles brand, really focused on music and food. And then we have Roost House, which is a chicken place. It's a modern chicken shop. We're not going after the Nashville hot chicken market or fast food or QSR market. It's a neighborhood chicken restaurant we're expanding. And we also have a newly developed Saigon snack bar, which is an adults and family small plates and cocktail bar focusing around Asian shareable plates, really good cocktails, and no alcoholic drinks. So we have we're working with Creve Restaurant out of New York that are helping us develop our cocktails and our non-alcoholic drinks for those, both non-alcoholic spirit drinks and also, I for lack of a better term, mocktails. So that's what we're doing here. And we have 2 under development, the food hall working, and we'll be going into the Bridgeport, Hartford Healthcare Amphitheater with Skull City Taquitos this year. So we're doing a lot of innovation within our restaurant spaces, focusing on creating neighborhood restaurants with an experience, as opposed to trying to run and gun and open up 10 and get a high valuation that everybody tries to go, oh, I've got these 4 walls, and how cheaply can I build my place out? And how clever can I make my branding look? And then you just have a product that really nobody wants, and a feeling and a space that nobody wants.
Right.
We're more along the line, Jesse, of we want to create the next generation of neighborhood restaurants where, regardless of the price point, people feel comfortable coming with families and partners and loved ones and business people or whoever.
Yeah.
And I think Bar Taco is a good model of that. Bar Taco is a brand we emulate and love a lot because my daughter goes there with her girlfriend. She goes there with her friends from school. She goes there for dates. Business people go there. 5, for lack of a better term, ladies at lunch go there, or like friends meet up, businessmen and women meet up there. And it's kind of like everybody's doing their own thing within that brand. And I think they've evolved the neighborhood restaurant better than anybody.
I've never been to one.
That
Bar Taco.
So I don't know about Orlando, but there's 2 in Miami right now. One in downtown Miami, and they just opened one in Coconut Grove. And we just think the brand is special.
Yeah.
Like they do it right.
Yep.
Good food, good hospitality, good operational, well-designed stores, at an intense price point that you'll love. I mean, And so that's what our stores are more geared towards, not the the Cavas and the people like opening up tens of stores each month that are fast casual. We're morphing into that space above fast casual, below fine dining, the loss of the neighborhood space that you would go and get a lunch maybe and then come back a couple nights later with your family.
Yeah.
Kind of space that.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. I need one of those around here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not sure if it was the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal had an article today bringing back the neighborhood restaurant where you just always had the space. When my wife and I first got married in San Francisco, we had an apartment in Russian Hill, and there was 2 restaurants we went to a couple times a week. And the staff knew us, and we knew them. And sometimes we'd bring our own bottle in and pay corkage. Sometimes we wouldn't. Sometimes we'd have an appetizer and an entree. Sometimes we just go in and grab an entree. And it's just those restaurants that you feel comfortable. Whatever you feel like doing or however feel you are, it's like just come as you are and we're going to take care of you. There's not enough of those restaurants anymore in the U.S. and they're dying. And a lot of them closed during COVID because their margins were so slim. So now we're going to try to get it so they're sustainable, profitable, and something that people, you can either take out or stay in. But you're not going to be sitting there with somebody's ass in your face while you're sitting there for dinner while somebody's taking out food. We're a very big proponent of keeping the takeout component away from like my sexy experience with whoever I want to be with dining, Jesse. I think people are losing that.
Yeah.
And the whole, everybody wants to take out, so we got to have a takeout section. Well, you do, but have it in such a way that you design it so it's comfortable for everybody.
Yeah. I was going to open a restaurant called, my wife and her cousin, we had a concept called 214. It was going to be a local sports bar owned by women and have high-end cocktails, wines, and then burgers and baskets and stuff. It was going to be really fun. But, when I was talking to the realtors, they're like, you need to just take over a space that already has a kitchen. Just do that. Go find that. So is that something that you look for when you're expanding? Do you look for places that kind of already have that set up, or do you prefer to just start from scratch and design all your own concepts?
So with Asian Box, when we opened up Asian Box, the first one did not have a kitchen, and we were able to design it with really good architects. A guy named Brian Southwick, who was phenomenal. He was with Cass Smith now. Plug for him. He's in South Carolina now, out of Charlottesville doing some great stuff. And we were able to work with a branding firm called Rubber Design. So from scratch, blank slate, really cool creative process. And then as we grew, some were retools, reskids, and some are brand new. With the 2 spaces we have under development now, because less capital in, it's called capital light development. Yeah, we're taking over spaces. The biggest expense in a restaurant are handicapped restrooms and the kitchen. Your grease trap, your gas lines, your electrical, your hood, all that stuff. So the more you can take over, everything else can just be stripped out and rechanged. But you can maybe add a door, ingress or egress. We were lucky right now, and it's a great question, Jesse, because it's on everybody's mind right now. We just took over 2 spaces for 2 very different concepts that are nearly perfect for what we want to do. One we had to pay more for because it was a bidding war, and the other one we got for very little money that we're happy with the capital in. Each one, the whole budgets will be far less than if we bought something and had to develop from scratch.
Yeah.
But you can't do it to be penny wise and pound foolish. You have to take over spaces, Jesse, that really work for your concepts or can be constructed such. You can't just take over a space because it's cheaper because it has a hood. But you want it. Trust me. You have to have sometimes your friends, your family, and your board say, you know what, it is a cheap deal, but there's a reason. So, but it's always better, I think, to take over an existing restaurant, especially with liquor licenses too. Like all states have different laws.
Yeah.
So if the space already had wine, beer, or cocktails, most likely you're going to be able to get a wine, beer, and cocktail license again because none of those in any states are transferable. It starts from scratch. So when you take over a space that already had cocktails, you're not going to fight with the city about having cocktails again, usually. So that's what's even more important about second generation space.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Really valid point, actually. Yeah, and then what type of license? There's just, yeah. What percentage of sales is this
Well, here's an
and that
example.
and whatever?
Well, in California, pre-pandemic, and now the prices are getting up again. All cities basically allow a certain amount of liquor licenses, liquor stores, and beer and wine licenses in a certain block radius. In California, you can still pay between $75,000 to $400,000 for a liquor license if it's a coveted neighborhood. Sadly, because of the decay of San Francisco, there's less and less of those, coveted neighborhoods. But in Connecticut, while you may pay higher taxes and have other stuff that's more expensive, a liquor license is $3,500. And as long as the city signs off and the fire department signs off, you can apply for that permit and get it like a temporary in 25 days.
Oh, wow.
And it takes 60 days from start to finish for $3,500. So good states to develop places with liquor licenses is.
Yeah, no, 100%. One of the reasons we picked our location is because we could ride our bikes or walk, which made it,
Well, hey, that's a big thing, Jesse.
it's huge.
Don't underestimate that. When I started Asian Box, my first Asian Box and our offices were a 5-minute bike ride in Palo Alto on a flat surface. Like I could run there if I needed to on my bad knee. So
exactly. It was
important.
It was our neighborhood, a neighborhood bar. But another question is,
you can become part of the community better too. I mean, I laugh about it being easy to get to, but having a restaurant in your area, like right now, we have our corporate offices. I'm upstairs right now. Below is one of the most popular old school taverns in town. The new restaurant we have is right next to this theater right below us. So literally, if we needed to, we could get down the stairs into that restaurant in less than a minute. So that's one of the ones we have in our development. The other one we have in the development is a 3-minute walk. Our rum headquarters are here, and the train is a half a block to a block away.
Nice.
So our rum salespeople, our investors, our corporate people, anybody who wants to come visit us, and now the city is giving us a license to have a tasting room in our offices. It's really important because you can really spend time amongst your consumer, your product, your team. People should not underestimate that growth pattern. We're getting it lucky. We just struck lucky with finding the restaurant spaces we wanted in a really great town that really eats out and drinks a lot, has 2 universities, 3 high schools, everything. Everything we desire. It's a beach community that the New York Times calls one of the best beach communities in Connecticut. So we're lucky, but the reason that we're taking on so much at once is because of the proximity. And it doesn't mean it's going to be any easier, but what it does mean is we can embed ourselves into the community and we can become a part, whether we're doing charity work or we're getting feedback or we're pivoting and segueing our concepts to more into what the consumer wants. And also, our team is right here, and our team is trained right away. If somebody wants to go up and do a tasting in Boston, they can literally grab a couple bottles, walk to the train, take the 2-hour train to Boston, do 5 hours worth of work, and come back, and we'll see them by the end of the day.
Wow, that's cool.
So,
yeah, that is.
You can't underestimate it.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it kind of goes back to your point of, yeah, we could go and source this from Colombia, but why do that when I'm an hour plane ride away to, it's easier access. It's just same time zone. All that stuff just makes things easier, less expensive. And, American made is always good too.
Absolutely. And listen, I love Colombia. I love the people down there. I love the businesses we met down there. But we just started to really look at the dollar, the shipping, the adding up, the sustainable footprint, the eco footprint. And you start to wonder about that stuff. We've been doing sustainable work. We used to do work in the national parks for years. And we were the first concession with our client not to serve bottled water. So I will admit that we did sell recycled metal logoed water fill bottles, but there was a sustainable element to it, and we made the same amount of profit. But that was a win-win.
Yeah.
When I did some consulting with Stanford University, we were putting water spouts all around the campus to get rid of plastic bottles. In the national park, you ask the rangers what they hate most. They hate the caps of water bottles, straws, and straw wrappers. It's the bane of their existence. So we believe in sustainability. Asian Box was one of the first 100% landfill fast casuals, meaning anything we gave to a consumer was either highly recyclable or highly compostable. So we believe in that. And to be able to, from a time standpoint, Bill and I we drove to the airport, parked the car in short-term parking, flew to North Carolina, got a full day of work in, woke up, got a full day of work in, got on the train, and we were home in bed by like, I think, 10 o'clock. So that's much different than having to fly down to Columbia if something goes wrong.
I could talk about this for hours, Frank. I have so many questions about this side of the business. I love it a lot. But we want to get to your journey. So is there anything else that we haven't mentioned about the brands that you wanna talk about before we switch?
No, I mean, the core element of the brands was to create products that have synergies off of each other. Rum and beer is drank in restaurants. Our restaurants that have a growth pattern, we've learned and we've researched that we're getting into the neighborhood restaurant market that can be templatable everywhere. Like I told you, I think Bar Taco does it the best. They show up in these talents and they look like they've been there forever. They're gorgeously designed and they're affordable and they're always packed. And there's a reason for it. It's not just because they picked the right real estate. There's a reason for it. So that's more of what we're going into, is to make sure that the dining room is brought back, hospitality is there, and that we create a neighborhood place where people actually meet up for drinks or meet before going to a theater, meet up after work, have a high school date, or meet up with their loved ones and partners and stuff. That's what we're trying to create our brands, which may be different than trying to say, I want to open up 50 fast casuals in 3 years, which, by the way, everybody does.
I'm going to be the next Chick-fil-A.
And they end up opening. Yeah, exactly. I want to be the next Chick-fil-A. I want to be the next, whatever, Sweet Greens. It's like, why don't you just be yourself? Be your fucking self and open up a really cool restaurant that people want to go to. And then if people really want to go to it, hey, maybe you can start being the next Sweet Green. But why don't you just try to be you first? Come up with a great concept that's differentiated and have some fun with your consumers and listen to them and create a product that could become the next X, Y, and Z, as opposed to saying you're going to do it.
I love that.
That's my rant anyways. We do that rant almost every day when we read about it, or we have consulting clients that talk to us. No, you're not. You're not going to open up 10 restaurants in 2 fucking years. You're never going to do it. You haven't opened up one.
Open one. Start with one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Start with one and make it the best ever. Make it the best ever.
See, that's me. The visionaries are just keep broadening our horizons on where we want to go versus just let's start here.
Listen,
process.
That was our 22 and 23. We took a little bit of investor money. We put our own money in, and we said, okay, let's throw everything against the wall and see what we really like, what we're passionate about, what we want to do.
That's awesome.
We want to do the rum. We want to do restaurants. Let's be very cautious about which restaurants we develop. Let's be cautious what we do. And that's what we did. And we were opportunistic. And now 24 is the year of focus and profit.
Being that you've you have run businesses or restaurants, East Coast, West Coast, is there any main differences that you can articulate between the consumers and what their expectations are or the concepts?
On West Coast, East Coast?
Yeah.
Yeah. We just had this conversation this morning as we develop one of our brands that was on the West Coast to an East Coast brand, and also community specific and where we want to grow. And I think one of the things we've learned is, as we develop concepts, like look at your next consumer in your next market and see, does it work? Like, does it work for multiple spaces? But start what your core consumer is and start in your own neighborhood, in your own back of the woods, and make sure that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then if you want to grow, make sure it can be expandable, but it may not, and realize that paradox may exist. You may have a great concept that makes money in one location, but does it expand well? So an example is like Asian Box. Like, we built it as a healthy fast casual, like the alternative to Granddaddy's Chinese or Vietnamese food that was all fried. So we did no woks, no fryers. Everything's made. For right now, it's not like a Chipotle line or a Cava line. You order your food, it's made in the kitchen and brought out to you, even though we have open kitchens. Now, does that parlay to everywhere on the East Coast? Kind of, sort of, maybe not. On the East Coast, people do like to see that Chipotle line. They do like to see that Cava line. They do like to see that you're just having everything out there. Where with Asian Box, at first, we didn't think it would look fresh and healthy and good. So Asian Box is a definitively California brand that started 11 years ago, 12 years ago. Now it can come to the East Coast and to suburban Ohio and other places because it's really well situated to the tune and the trend of the consumer. I think 8 years ago, if you tried to go to Ohio with Asian Box, people would have gone, who gives a shit about healthy? Who gives a shit about sustainable? Who gives a shit about more vegetables and protein on my plate? Now it's more of like, that's what's happening, and we're going to take advantage of that with the growth of Asian Box. What we've learned, though, from different brands, like a fried chicken brand becomes a rotisserie chicken brand here in Connecticut, and how do you morph that into, which is what we're working on right now with our brand Roost House. That was predominantly a fried chicken brand, ironically, in California, but now we're morphing it into a little bit of rotisserie and fried chicken brand. So, I mean, Asian Box is the perfect example. It's a fantastic brand. The food's amazing. An amazing Vietnamese chef, female, gorgeous food, like one of the best chefs and bakers in the country. And most things people don't know about her, she's a better baker than she's a chef, and she's one of the best chefs in the world.
That's
However,
impressive to be both.
That brand can now, well, no, her husband's a chef too, and he's our business partner. And sadly, I think everybody just silently admits that she's a better chef than him. And he's great too. He's like amazing. But her baking skills are just, they bring tears to your eyes thinking about the shit that she makes. It's hard to bake. You can learn how to cook, but it's hard to bake.
Yeah.
And she has both. Well, I digress though, but now taking her wonderful food to the Midwest and to certain suburban markets in Denver and Boulder, now the brand makes sense. And that's a perfect example of what you were talking to. How do you take a brand from one space to another? And that's what I talked about earlier. Don't say you're going to have 50 friggin' restaurants. Just say you're going to create a cool restaurant. And if you do want it to expand, make sure you know where you're going to expand and make sure that market will be up to speed with you. Because if we would have opened up Asian Box 12 years ago and said, and then we're going to go to, I don't know, Columbus, Ohio, or then we're going to go to St. Louis, maybe the market wasn't ready for us then.
Yeah.
Doesn't make the consumer less sophisticated or doesn't make them any different. It just makes it a different demographic you have to understand. So now I think it's a great question you asked because nobody realizes that. If you want to expand, look at where you're going to expand to and make sure the market's either you've caught up with the market there or the market there is caught up with your product. And it's something you really have to look at. Yeah. Because non-alcoholic drink trends may look really out of place at a bar somewhere, but they won't in other areas, as an example.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering that too. I mean, LA kind of tends to be a little bit more health conscious than anywhere else. So I don't know if they've adopted the NA Bev, cycle a little bit earlier than East Coast.
Yeah, and they have, and there's celebrities that have lower alcohol and non-alcohol, and because they don't give me $1 million, I'm not going to say their names, but there's like female celebrities that now have really cool lower non-alcoholic products, and they were a year or two ago into, so they're already in the trend. And for our standpoint, though, in both the restaurants we're developing, we will have no alcoholic alternatives because we have a little vainness and ego in us that if we don't have them, we feel bad that we don't have them because we think we should have them because we should show people that we're ahead of the trend. But at the same time, our discussions around the area and our focus grouping has shown that people want them, even though many of the restaurants around here may not have them.
Right.
The good restaurateurs are starting to put them on here. There's a lot of great restaurateurs around here, and they're starting to do the trend things that, like Miami, New York, LA, who kind of the movers a little bit in the food industry are doing now.
Yeah, it's a trend. It's like you said, it's not going away. We in our family did dry January, and so I experimented, and I'll mix a cocktail and get my bar tools out and just play around with it. It's not my claim to fame or anything, but it is kind of fun to kind of push the limits on some of these different types of spirits.
It is. I unfortunately I didn't cheat during dry January, but I made it dry January light.
That's
which
good.
Meant drinking a lot less. But last night watching the football game to cook dinner for my family, I had 2 non-alcoholic Budweisers just because I start to crave those carbs.
Exactly.
And so I did that. I eat a lot of keto, so every now and then I just really need carbs. And my wife goes, why are you drinking non-alcoholic beer? I go, well, because I feel like I'm drinking carbs, but I'm not, even though they're low carb. Even Coors, all these people now have like 3-carb beer. And but I had 2 non-alcoholic beers last night because it was Sunday and I was tired, and we took my daughter on a college tour yesterday, and I didn't want to have any alcohol. I was tired after the day, but I still wanted that alcohol and that carb kind of like I'm drinking a beer watching football kind of feel.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I had an athletic beer watching the game.
Yeah, so they're right from our neck of the woods. They're building their massive factory in Stratford, right up like they're going to be like 15 minutes away from us, and that's a great product. I mean, that's a really, really great product, and I'm not gonna say they created a market because there's been non-alcoholic beers forever, but they've done more for that, driving that industry and that specific segment of non-alcoholic beer than
100%.
anybody has done in a category in a long time. You know, almost like Casamigos with tequila. Like Athletic Brewery's done a really great job. Kudos to them for going after people that drink, but maybe I just did a big hike and I brought a pitcher of beer or a bucket of like ice with beer. Maybe I don't want to get hammered and have to walk down the hill, but I can still have a non-alcoholic beer and watch the sunset. I think what they do is really good, and their marketing is really clever that way.
So good. The cans are beautiful. I as a marketing person, I'm like I have I'm in the pool, got the can, I'm taking pictures. It's just so silly, but it's true.
Yeah, I mean, their names of their beers, what they do is a great thing, and we always have them at our parties. Like we have a lot of office parties. We have parties in my house. We always have non-alcoholic beer. Athletic Brewery in Two Roads, who's one of our clients and partners, they make a fantastic non-alcoholic beer too, and we always have them on hand so people can drink and not whatever the reason you're not drinking.
Right.
You may have had your surgery. You may be on medication. You may be having a psychotic break. Whatever reason you don't want to drink, whatever it is, just don't drink. Have that, and no one's gonna. Listen, we don't really have the kind of people that hang around our circle that do that. But like anybody who chastises somebody for not having an alcoholic beer or drinking no alcohol is just a moron. They're a jackass. People should drink what they want. If they want to have something in their hand that makes them feel more comfortable at a party or whatever, that's what that market opens up to.
Yep.
And then other people just want to socialize. You know, drinking is socializing in its community. So why not just drink a great non-alcoholic something or other than a Diet Coke? It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's kind of held us back from going to restaurants this month, because we're like, and some of them around here do have non-alcoholic options, and for me, it didn't skip a beat. Now, the place we went, I'd rather have a mezcal than they didn't have a mezcal, non-alcoholic, but I still got that experience of I have my cocktail and I have my dinner, and it didn't miss anything from that experience.
No, exactly. And that's why you're elevating the mocktail category. You're elevating it into zero proof cocktails. And a zero proof cocktail can be sold to a high school girl as much as it could to somebody my age or your age. It's zero proof cocktail. It's okay. Like some people are bitching that, oh, you're trying to sell cocktails to kids. No, if my 17 or 19-year-old daughter wants to join their father in a drink, I'm not going to let them drink because they're underage. But if they have a no alcohol drink that has different kinds of botanicals and stuff in it, more power to them. I mean, but I'm not going to let them drink, and that's why they're there for it. If somebody wants to have a drink, like if your wife wants to have a drink and you're still doing dry January, you can have a cocktail that's not like a bitch mocktail, like a Shirley Temple. That's what it should be for.
Yeah.
I mean, this shame drinking or shame not drinking is offensive to me. You should just have good things for people to drink.
Yeah, and sessionable and inclusion and all those things that are important for all of us to, people that don't drink anymore or can't drink anymore, whatever their reasons are, can have that experience the dry January experience and be comfortable going out to bars and restaurants. So I think it's a really important initiative, and I'm really happy to see your team is behind that.
Well, and people are charging. We were in New York doing research last week. People are charging $10 to $14 for no alcoholic drinks. Well, higher end mocktails.
They are expensive.
Restaurants can still make their buck.
Yeah. Right now, they are expensive because it's in such low volume, but I think that'll ease as the market opens.
Yeah, but you know what? If it's a quality thing for 10 or 12 bucks, and everybody in New York's charging 15 to 20 bucks for an old fashioned.
Yeah.
I had I had a Gramercy Tavern old fashioned the other day for 25 bucks. One of my favorite places. I was just like, oh my god,
25 bucks. Oof.
Yeah, yeah. That's why you go to like Dante's West in the West Village. They have Martini Hour, and it's like $10 for Martini in New York with a great environment, a great bartender, and a great drink. And you're going, it's only $10. You're so happy to spend $10 on a cocktail.
Oh yeah, that's funny. All right, so we switch over to your journey here in the industry. Are you ready?
Oh, the journey.
The journey.
The journey. The hard slog of a journey.
Digging deep. So, Frank,
the deep recesses of my mind.
That's right. Where are you born? Where were you born? Sorry.
I was born in right outside of Norfolk, Virginia, in a place called Little Creek, Virginia. My father was a military officer for a good part of my life, and then he retired and went to work in the private sector. So I was able to, as a military brat, to move around quite a bit. But I was born in Virginia, but I call myself a Californian because most of the time we did spend in California. A lot in San Diego, and then I went to school and lived in Los Angeles for quite a bit of time. So I always wanted to be from New York. I'm a punk rocker, and I just finished reading Sonic Youth, 2 books, Girl in the Band by Kim Gordon, and then Thurston, I always forget Thurston's book, Sonic Candor, I can't remember what it is, but I just read both those books back to back, and loved New York, loved the punk scene. I got that in LA going, and the music scene in LA. I was lucky to be in LA at a really good time in the music scene. And so born in Virginia, Southern California, Los Angeles were my bigger jams as I grew up and got into the business.
So you're East Coast, West Coast guy.
Yeah. I mean, now, my wife's relatives are from New York, and people said, why'd you move to Connecticut? And I go, well, first of all, we're nomads and travelers, and it was a good time right before the pandemic to move. And but I go back to California on business, and I mean, that's the best thing about it. Now going back to California is running it. My mother-in-law lives in Sonoma next to my favorite wineries, and so I get to go there. I get to go to Palo Alto for business and see Asian Box still develop and grow, and see my friends. So it's the best of both worlds. But growing up, it was, it was moving around a lot, but then starting to situate after high school in Northern California and LA for college, and Northern California is where I started is that accurate? Yeah, I started my restaurant career after consulting. I started owning and operating my own places first in San Francisco. Had my first job at the Hotel del Coronado. My first hospitality job was at the Hotel del Coronado, and it was absolutely a friggin' great job. I was renting a beach cottage with my girlfriend at the time across from the beach for like $300 a month. And in one day of being a maitre d' at a French restaurant, I could pay my rent, and then the rest of the month was just glory and gravy.
Wow.
So
those are the days.
Yeah. Those were the days. I always said, as long as you had a bag of weed in your pocket, a full tank of gas, and your rent was paid, you were living the life.
Living the dream.
I mean, sometimes I look back this and I go, why didn't I just stop there? But then I thought I wouldn't have my lovely wife and my 2 kids. That's why I always tell them.
Yeah.
My daughter goes, "Would you do something different?" I go, "No, I wouldn't do anything different because it meant it to your mother and to you kids." But yeah, those were back in the days. Those were back in the days when everybody had their drug of choice and their person of arm in their choice, and it was a different thing. It was a different thing. It was a good time. Good times. The music was lively too.
Yeah, and there's a sense of community. I remember growing up probably a little bit before my time. I was born late mid 70s, grew up in the 80s, and back in the day, I mean, I'll call it 70s, 80s, there was a lot of local bands. Every Friday and Saturday night, there'd be a band, somebody be playing, everybody's going to the dance, this, that, and the other. And then it just kind of fizzled out. So, obviously I'm from a small town in Iowa. We're from the country, but, back in the day, I remember just growing up listening to stories of how that's that's what they did. Fridays and Saturday nights after the game, they'd go to the dance. Whatever who's ever playing in whatever area, it's fun times.
Yeah, everybody in our office, and we love live music. We're live music freaks. We used to have on the Asian Box website, the founders, Frank and Chad, while they're traveling, will pull over to see a middle school string quartet, or go see a punk band, or go see, everywhere we traveled, the first thing we would do, sadly, when we travel for business, was Google who's playing live music in town. So whether it was the small DC clubs or the New York clubs or Chicago, we got to see Lana Del Rey in front of 300 people in an old theater that used to be the first integrated dance hall in Chicago. And before she was big, before she became
cool.
a persona, we saw her. And I remember seeing the Smashing Pumpkins on the road at the Metro doing an acoustic show. I've flown around to see the National 6 times, different places. Before Marilyn Manson got canceled, I used to fly around to see him. So when we're ever in a town, live music, it influenced me growing up. And I'm a live music freak. I'm going to go see Band of Horses, the Capitol Theater on the New York-Connecticut border this weekend on Saturday. So I think people should listen to music. And I think music is also something that lacks curation in restaurants. You shouldn't give over your proprietary over the music that you play in your restaurants, because people don't want to hear a mix of Celine Dion meets Bruce Springsteen meets whatever. It should be what the alter ego of the restaurant is. And I certainly learned that growing up, because I always had a soundtrack of my life at different times. And you brought up my wife. My wife was born in '72, so she's kind of the same way. That local music scene, by the time she got out of high school, maybe wasn't there. I was fortunate enough to see a music scene in high school, college, and post-college, and it's always influenced my life. It influences our brands too, Jess. Yeah, we're all music.
That's awesome.
We're music freaks in our offices.
So you really started out right away in the hospitality industry, then, right out of college.
Well, I started out before I went to college, because I took a couple years off after high school. But what really got me started was when I worked at the Hotel del Coronado. I learned really good wine and better dining from certain people. So I got a taste of higher end before I got a taste of lower end in the business. And then after college, I got into real estate a little bit, and then went right back down to San Diego and started working with restaurants and marketing, and then consulting. And then that started taking me all around the West Coast until I ended up in San Francisco, owning and operating my own businesses. But that little taste in Coronado really bit me from the standpoint of putting out a good product and learning about wines and good cocktails and service and that element. It was really something that I felt really close to, more than when I was selling commercial real estate. I felt soulless, but I was making really good money.
Yep.
But it wasn't something I was really passionate about.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, you get the bug and you never look back,
And we always tell people, don't make it your candy store. Run legitimate operations and run really great stores and run good things. When I had my restaurants in San Francisco, I always just told everybody the same thing. You can have one drink and then get the fuck home or go somewhere else. But let's not make this like a clubhouse that degenerates into all the bad things that degenerate when people drink in the restaurant business. Let's try to be elevated a little bit.
So do you have any mentors that you can think of that have helped you throughout your career in hospitality? Anybody you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, in business, I worked for a guy in college we did a real estate portfolio. He was Larry Worth. He was awesome because he really taught me about being the hard ass and then also making concessions when you need to, because we were doing a lot of deals as the economy was hitting the shitter in Los Angeles. And mid to late 80s, and I learned about how to balance making sure that you're protecting your own interest, your investors' interest, your partner's interest, your employees, your staff interests. And then as I got into business, I took those things with me that always made me more fiscally, financially, and conservatively sounded as far as developing restaurants. But somebody who's had a great effect on my career and learning was somebody I've known for a little over 12 years, is Alice Elliott from the Elliott Group. And she's mentored a lot of people, and she's a guru, and her company, the Elliott Group, does high-level executive placements and strategic planning and consulting services. And now her son, Barry, has joined the group. And, Alice is just one of those people that there's not a day that goes by I don't repeat a quote that she said to me. And, and one of my favorite ones was like, when it gets frustrating and there's a lot of details that are making things go south, particularly, she said, investors don't care about the details, or your team doesn't care about the details. Where do you want to be in 3 weeks, 6 months with this situation? Because that's all anybody gives a crap about. Alice doesn't swear, so I won't quote her swearing. But and then that's always a quote that stuck with me. But Alice has always been very intertwined with my businesses and helping me and giving me direction, and has been invaluable to me as I've made mistakes, as I've been successful, and really kind of steering me. I'd say she's had a great influence on my later career. My younger career, we always laughed. It was like the Bank of Frank, right? We had wine bars, we had blues clubs, we had really, really high-end restaurants, award-winning, everything. Yet, maybe I could have used that person looking over my shoulder. And then once I got into the fast casual space, Alice really nurtured me and taught me about board of directors, taught me about advisors, taught me how to screen through employees, and also just to not be so concerned with what everybody else is thinking. Be concerned with what you're doing. Are you doing the right thing? Are you living the pure ethos? And my favorite saying of Alice is, if you don't care about the details, Frank, they care about the results. So as much as you really want to focus on the A, B, C, D, Z, Z's, you need to, but then you've got to bring it out to your team and bring it out to the direction. And you still have to be the leader. So, yeah, Alice has had a great influence on my professional career. It's been really great to be able to have her in my orbit.
Yeah, that's awesome. What about any resources? And, that can be anything from your, organizational skills or taking your professional life to maybe the next level. And at some point, is there any resources that you'd like to share?
I'm an avid reader. I don't like to doom scroll. So this year I made a commitment to read a book a week.
Oh, wow.
And it alternates between pleasure and business. Now, my pleasure, I only read nonfiction now. I read nonfiction that tells a narrative story, like something about World War II that reads like a novel but it's really true, or about some serial killer in Chicago that ran the World Fair that's really good. And I like different authors that intertwine a story with historical nonfiction. Then I read the business books to get to your question. So I already reread Burn the Boats this year, which is a great business book. And now I'm reading Ron Shaikh's book because I did the Sonic Youth book. So I like to read a lot about other people's experiences and about failures and successes. Like I read Danny Meyer's Setting the Table years ago, and now I'm reading, Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Burita, who's a disciple of Danny Meyer. And I find that a better read. I actually like it. I think I'm learning more from that at this stage of my career about the reminders of what to do. And I think going back to what I told you about the wine tasting panel I was on the Chronicle, where nobody read anything else. They were operating in a vacuum and they knew what they were doing. And it's like, no, dude, you have to read and you have to learn and you have to study. So I think there's a ton of great business books out there that people can get acquainted with. And I use those as resources. I also subscribe to pizza.com, QSR.com, fastcasual.com, Nation's Restaurant News. I get about 10 newsletters from those publications in my inbox every day or every 2 days. And so you're always able to read like a couple paragraph story about what other people are doing.
Yeah.
I think the old saying, the Chinese proverb about the man who stopped learning is dead, we really adhere to that. And I think that you should always be reading and looking at your peers, other people and reading. And even if it's just a reminder, like I've read the Burn the Boats a couple times now. And every time I read it, it reminds me of why I'm in the business, what I should be doing, and resets my vision with the team. So I don't think a lot of people in any business are saying to do that enough. I mean, reading, you can look at the news for 3 hours on an iPad a night, or you can read for 3 hours and you're going to get more value out of the reading. If it doesn't stress you out, I don't recommend it for people to get stressed out about it. So people may want to alternate reading those novels and fiction that they like. Because sometimes, to be truthful, I always have 2 books by my bedside. And if I'm really in a stressed out mood about business, I will not pick up that book about Ron Shake where he's getting in your head and telling you what to do, how we start a Panera Bread. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I will instead pick up the book about the serial killer who seems to not bother me before I go to sleep. No.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes I have to be careful what I listen to before I go to bed, because I've woken up like with how your brain just distorts the reality of it, and it intertwines with people that you know and people from your past life. It's so weird, so bizarre.
Yeah, that's why I try not to do work in bed or before I go to bed, because I really believe in that, like, listening to positive music and stuff before you go to bed. So it's like, it's okay, Frank, you can go to bed. It's all right. Here's some calming music, as to putting intrusive thoughts in your head that you don't want to have in your head.
Right.
Because you will wake up at 3 o'clock going, oh, maybe we should have French fries on the menu. And you go,
and then you go, that's what kept me up.
No, exactly. That's why I got a shitty night's sleep, because I looked over like 10-year financial projections that I shouldn't have before I went to bed, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I like to get sleep. I really am trying to be more Zen-like about sleeping, and then waking up in the same way about being more meditative. And whatever you do, you should really spend 20 to 30 minutes alone time zenning out, not really focusing on the day necessarily, but focusing on you, positivity, gratitude, and other things, whether it's spiritual, religious, or whatever, however you want to get into it. I advise everybody to get into it, because in this business, it can be toxic when you start to go down the rabbit hole of how much you have to do, or what you're doing, or what you're responsible for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I should probably do that. I like getting up at like 4 if I do wake up, and just get in the office, and then my mind is clear, it's quiet, and I love that, like 2 to 3 hours of just nonstop just thinking.
Oh yeah,
it's so great. That's my favorite time.
I think there's something about that. Listen, I agree. One of my brother-in-law was a Navy SEAL, and all those disciplines, and I've read the Navy SEAL discipline books about Win the Morning, and how Mark Wahlberg goes to bed at 8 o'clock, and then he gets up at 3 and starts to work out at 3 o'clock, and Dwayne The Rock has already done 10 things before 7. And I agree with that to a certain extent, but then I agree to yourself, do what you can in your natural rhythm.
Yeah.
Because that time between 4 and 7 in the morning, when it's quieter in the world, your sphere of the world, is really good creative time. It's really good Zen-like time.
It is.
But if you don't, and you decide to get up at 8 o'clock, just start your day strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't do it every day, of course. But when I do, it's always kind of a good day. I always feel good about it.
Oh, yeah, there's nothing like getting up that early, having productiveness at 8 o'clock. You go, shit, I've had a full day.
I know.
I feel good.
My brain is tired already.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to cook up that 3rd cup of coffee. Have you noticed that since you're doing sort of a January light, that your sleep is better? Or is it different?
Yeah, alcohol fucks up your sleep more than anything. Anyone who says it's not is just wrong. I mean, to the extent that if you get hammered and pass out, that's not good. To the extent that you drink too much and your heart's racing and you get up at 2 or 3 in the morning, that's not good. So I've always said the best days in this business, because sometimes you have to drink socially or whatever, is either you're drinking the non-alcoholic beer or you're making sure you're stopping drinking earlier. And that's one of the definite things I've done for dry January. Just trying not to have booze after 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
In any shape or form. We just took that research trip and to see the distiller and look at our reserve rum and the RTD evolution in North Carolina. And we spaced out our drinking during the day, I'd say. And then the next day, didn't drink anything. We went to like 10 different places. So you got to balance it. But your sleep, sleep is greatly affected by 3 things. Shitty eating, not exercising, and drinking too much. All 3 of those things will screw up your sleep very badly.
Yeah,
it's approved.
Yeah, and it's funny because my wife and I were sleeping a lot. I'll be in a deep sleep for like 9 hours, and I only need 6 hours. And so I'm tired, and because I'm sleeping, I'm sleeping so good. It's just funny. I'm just wondering why I have to sleep that much now.
Well, yeah. Well, on the converse, my wife's a high school teacher, so she gets up at 6 o'clock every day, and then I get up like at 6:10. And I've noticed that during like January, the 6:10, I'm wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. I get right and lay my clothes out the night before, and I'm getting at it. I'm ready to it. So, yeah, I'm in the rum business. I'm in the beer business. I'm in the restaurant business. Everything in moderation.
Yeah.
Don't stop drinking if you don't want to stop drinking. But everybody should be responsible at everything. You should just be moderation, and you should be. But drink quality and drink less.
Yeah, that's it, just it right there. I like that a lot. So, what are you seeing as your main pain points in the industry? And I know you kind of got a lot going on, whether it be restaurants or rum or the beer side. You can take your pick on which one.
One of our biggest pain points is the new workforce, the Gen Z workforce. And we've pulled back on some of the projects that we have because we started to realize managing other people's workforces that they can't manage is not a healthy environment.
Yeah.
So at Asian Box, the average tenure of our general managers right now is, I think, 5 years. We lost one general manager through the pandemic by our own choice. So if you have a good culture and you have good people, you need to keep on to them. So a pain point right now as we grow is realizing that you have to be very careful to make sure that your hires match your ethos, your work ethic, and your company values. And it is a pain point. Everybody talks about it. Labor is a pain point. And you mentioned, I haven't talked about the cost of labor. I'm talking about the ethics, the work ethos, the attitude, and people's longer-term goals in the workforce are different than they used to be. So I think that's a major pain point right now. And it's top of mind for most people. If you're in the restaurant business, spirits business, whatever, and you're not worried about who's working for you or what they're doing or making sure you get the right people and screening and vetting people seriously, then you're either lying or you're not doing it. And it's going to bite you. So that's probably a big pain point. We're finding real estate available. We're finding funding available. Yeah, I mean, I can't think of anything else that, other than just being busy as shit and making sure that we stay focused. But the pain points created by the market, and whether that's product pricing or whatever, we're seeing the economy okay. I'm still not convinced that we're over the hump, but I'm convinced that it's settled down enough, and now your product has to match the consumer that's in this new economy, whatever that may be. Inflation may be down, the recession fears may be down, but people are still complaining a lot about what they're paying at the grocery store, what they're paying at restaurants, what they're paying at Walmart, what they're paying at Chick-fil-A, what they're paying at Cava or Sweet Green. There's a lot more chatter about every cost has gone up, and they're not bringing them down after inflation. So that's going to probably be a pain point, is making sure that we can afford the price points of the markets we want to be in. And I think we will win that pain point. I think we're really good at that. As good operators, you just have to make sure that you're spending the right money so that your consumer is comfortable with the product you're offering.
Yeah, you're right. That you got to be flexible and read the market like you do. Stay on top of it. That's awesome. That's really awesome. So, what are we've kind of talked a little bit about your outlook for 2024. Do you want to talk a little bit about that or expand upon that?
Yeah, I'm happy about 2024, but we also were very lucky to have a certain investment group that was patient and understood what we were doing in 2022 and 23, was really vetting all of what we were doing to start doing 24, 25, and 26 the right way. So we're really bullish on the year. I'm old enough to have gone through many presidential election cycles, and it's always wonky, whether it's good times, bad times. It's always wonky, no matter who is in the office and who is running against them. People start to get nervous, they get more fearful. It becomes less predictable. So you have to kind of really stay true to yourself and realize your offering has to be commensurate with the price point. So again, I go back to that. That's something we're really concerned about, is making sure that we can make a profit, we can be sustainable, we can hire the right people and pay them appropriately and have really good cultures and build our business the appropriate way. But 24 is an interesting year because it's an election year.
Yeah, you're right.
They're always different, and you'll see trends in July to September that people will sneak up on people, that the best people aren't predicting them, and you'll wonder why. And there would have been some underlying crack in what people thought was happening to what becomes reality. So those are the things to watch for.
That's so interesting. Well, I can't wait to touch base with you this fall and find out what that is. That's so cool. I've never had anybody explain
There's
that
going to
like
be a couple things, Jesse. You're going to say, I remember that conversation, Frank, and you're going to know them. You're going to know them. I'm not going to even ask about it. You're going to say this and that. That was really weird. I go, I know. I know.
That'll be cool. So, Frank, what are your passions outside of work? What do you like to do?
I really like to hang with my family. One of the things my wife did very smartly was we raised our kids in the savage world of Palo Alto, was we always had dinner around the table as much as we could.
Yep.
I know people are supposed to say that, but I do. We like to spend time with the family. We like to take day trips. We like to. I love to read. I just love to read. It calms my mind. I'm exercising less, but I'm getting back into it. But outside, it's also research. Like, whether it's my wife and I or my daughter and I, we like to go to new places and check out new experiences in the food and beverage experience. It's something that floats all of our boats.
Yeah.
But definitely my business keeps me busy, keeps me researching after work. But I'm really passionate about that, and I'm passionate about getting back more involved in the restaurant business because it gets us more deeper in the communities. One of the things we were really passionate about with Asian Box is we developed several stores in the same concentric area we were very involved with the schools, with underprivileged kids. We were very involved with the hospitals. And I'm really looking forward to getting back into that because you can always donate money. You can always write a check.
Right.
You can always donate at your church or whatever, donate time. But the restaurant business really gives you the opportunity to have some fun with charitable donations and charitable giving and meeting the community. And we've always been passionate about that. Always been passionate about that. So that gives us the chance to do that more. But, I believe in this thing. It's family, family, family. We all like to travel together, like to do day trips, do overnight trips, explore new things. And I'm lucky enough that I get to go away for business every now and then for a night or two. And that cures me of the travel bug. But, yeah.
That's awesome.
That's what we'd be passionate about at this time.
So do you want to call out any websites or anything before we sign off here?
Well, you can always look at postroadhospitality.com. That shows our team, shows our advisory, shows all the products and stuff we're doing in the market. We're just about to start an updated blog on that next month where we'll learn about more things. You'll learn about more things more quickly. And then we have our Instagram handles for Fairfields Rum that go out and follow it because we're just starting to do that a little bit more and get more engagement. We had pulled it back for a little bit. So that's Fairfields Rum. Bill, is that Fairfields Rum? The Instagram? Jesus, the man who's handling the Instagram has to look at his phone. What, Bill? It's Fairfields Rum.
Fairfields Rum.
Fairfields Rum and Instagram. And then Post Road Hospitality is still under my old FK Restaurants thing. But mostly go look at Rum of Americas is our website for rum. We love our website. In our website for our status in the industry is low fruit hangers is kind of cool. That's rumoftheamericas.com. Fairfields Rum under Instagram, and then postroadhospitality.com pretty much explains what we're doing. I appreciate you letting the shout out. We're getting more involved, getting back into Twitter/X and more involved. And we're still debating internally about TikTok because I don't like the Chinese stealing all the data.
It's a thing.
And everything. Like consumers, it's a really big conundrum in our office right now.
It's also a time suck to create all that crap.
I know, but in the spirits world, you need to do it. And we're going to do it through Instagram. And even though Instagram is doing the same sucking of your mind and your kids and the bullying and all that stuff. So we have a problem. We're in the business, but we need to do those. But we may not agree with 100% of that. So we're still in the – definitely doing Instagram. We're in the TikTok phase.
I know.
Of like, Yeah.
I made one video and I'm not doing it again. Not right now. It's just like the time it took me to make this video is ridiculous. It was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it, but it's just the time, you know.
It is a time suck. So we'll be looking at, firms. We work with Cohere. People should look at their company if they're in the industry. COHERE. They're run by Antoinette and Eric Almaholzer is our culinary advisor. And they have an amazing platform now for emerging brands that absolutely helps with branding and marketing and websiting and TikToks and other social media things at a reasonable price.
That's great.
And I still think they stick it to us because we're more established. But we love them, and they're really good at what they do. They're really well. So many people. One of the biggest questions I get asked is, "Who can do my logo? Who can do that?" Well, you can, if you want to, spend good money but not great money, Cohere is a really good firm for emerging brands. They're a good resource. So, people forget to ask their friends in the industry to mentor them, and I think people should do that more. And I definitely do that with Cohere. I lean on them a lot. They're a good firm. They're a good branding firm, marketing firm. They do a lot of really cool shit that's visual and multimedia with Alex Kanahoff, who is like their creative director. They do some really cool stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fun. That is fun. All right, well.
That stuff we don't have. We're not going to do videos. We're not going to do our photo shoots. We're going to do shit on our iPhone that's decent. But when you have products and you have investors, you have the expectation of doing it at a little bit better scale.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. It's a little bit different than just being solo me here. you know? Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, Frank, is there anything else we haven't mentioned that you want to shout out before we head off here?
No, it's fun. You allow me to get people in placement, product placements, everything. It's been fun. It's been great chatting because we love this business. We're passionate about it, and we're doing everything we can to be successful in it. And we've had high levels of successes. We've had some failures. We've learned. We're going to keep on trucking, keep on reading, keep on learning from the people that we respect in the business, and just have a good time with it because life is different post-pandemic. It's a little bit more edgy, and the less edginess you get out of your life and do what you really love with people that you enjoy being with, I think is really the important thing to do right now.
Yeah, I do too. I think people have reassessed their lives. I mean, I remember pre-pandemic, the idea of getting up at 5, going to the gym, getting in the car, being there by 8, getting out at 5, an hour drive home, and then you're like, okay, what's for dinner? That's gone. That life is gone. We don't have that life. We've chosen not to go back to that life.
Yeah, no one is really going back to that life. So now, meet the consumer where they are. Skate to where the puck's going, not where it is. You know where it is, but then take that information and figure out post-pandemic where people want to be and meet them there. Not enough brands are doing that. There's a lot of brands doing it, but a lot of emerging people in the industry, I'm looking at them going, it's not really the right industry for you because you're looking at what was or you're looking at what you think could be. You're not really looking at where that stupid puck is going because that's where you need to go. You need to go that way.
Yeah.
Not there.
100%. I don't think people think like that as well. And I don't think they clearly don't do the kind of research that you guys do. I mean, it's pretty impressive.
And most companies do. I mean, our companies are with us. The good companies are in business, do what we do.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of people trying to get into the business that don't understand how really hard it is and really the research, the level of detail and level of commitment to hospitality and love of serving people you have to have. It's not about building 4 walls and having 10 of them saying I'm going to sell to so-and-so. Because that's what's happening right now. It's like everybody's going, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And then so-and-so is going to buy me or so-and-so is going to invest. And it's like, that's not a soul. That's not a brand. That's
not a soul.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, it's a pipe dream.
The gimmick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Frank. I love learning about your story and your brands and all the amazing things that you guys are doing. I can't wait to try your concepts one of these days. And hopefully we get to meet. That'd be fun. I'd love to.
And you shall.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel honored looking at all the people you've had in the past. I feel great. I feel really appreciative that, Taylor Foxman of the industry collective looked this up. Taylor, who knows more people than anybody in the spirits business, looked this up. So I really owe a big thanks to her.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's really, truly amazing. Does amazing things for a lot of people in our industry, for sure.
Yeah, and she's an uplifter. She's that person that wants to like lift a hand up, and help people out, as opposed to always seeking a dime out of it. So I've always appreciated her, and she's always helped me. So, and I appreciate you for having us on, because even though Taylor recommended, you could have said, "Oh, fuck Frank, who wants to talk to him?" Oh,
I love talking to you right away. It was fun. It was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, best of luck to you, and hopefully we'll connect here in the next few months just to touch base and see how everything's going. And then I really want to know the cracks. I want to know what falls in the cracks.
Yeah, in the fall. Find what the cracks are.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be eating tropicals or something that nobody expected. It's going to be craving something, or something's going to happen.
I can't wait. It'll be fun.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks for the time.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
This week's episode was produced by Fedora J Productions.